I think it's the way that we are playing. I think we've got a lot better, I guess, from the first start of the English series last year. I think we were, trying to have this attacking ability, being able to try and hold the ball, but, execution role was a big thing with what happened with us last year.
Then Argentina's another step up, especially over there. I don't know whether we could actually get more perfect preparation ourselves facing the South Africans then at home.
There's nothing better than an old man being able to score a try for Waikato against the Auckland team.
So cool.
That's coming from a Harbour man.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Well, it's with great pleasure that we welcome onto the DSPN for the very first time, and we've had a bit to do with each other in the past, but it has been a while. Bryn Hall. Now, you can see Bryn every week on Sky, Tuesdays at 8:30. It's called the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. It's hosted by Ross Carl, an old colleague of mine. James Parsons on there as well. And you're getting some great numbers on that. Great rugby chat, mate. I watch it every week. So congratulations on that to start with, and thank you so much for joining us.
No, thanks for having me on. It's been a long time. Actually, probably my days playing back in New Zealand was the last time we chatted. So, it's good to be on here. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, the news today, let's start straight away with that. Richie Mo'unga is back. He's back from next year. So he's obviously going to do another stint up in Japan. Then I think it's June or July he signed his contract, available for the All Blacks from October. I would imagine there's some flexibility around that. Just depends on what happens with other players around the time. But first and foremost, it's excellent news for us, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Look, it's probably been talked about since Razor got the job in terms of trying to get Richie Mo'unga back. There's a lot of chat in terms of, could they get him out of the contract or not? But yeah, obviously his requirements with Toshiba. But look, anytime you can get a player of his caliber, and I can tell you myself personally, the way that he's been playing the last 2.5 years over in Japan, he coming back into the international stage won't be a big problem for him. So, like I said, he's got an affiliation with Razor, a lot of that coaching group. Probably has some unfinished business in terms of that All Black jersey with the World Cup in the near distance in 2027. So, yeah, it's a great day for New Zealand rugby, and it's been able to bring, I guess, a guy of his experience to that number 10 position. Yeah,
I'm also wondering, how often this might happen in the future. Actually, players play so much rugby here, and it's of a standard and everything else. You're under the microscope. Maybe it must be as much mentally refreshing being away from home, and especially for a couple of years. And obviously he's still got it in him that he wants to actually represent us at the highest level.
Yeah, that's it. Look, I think, chatting to a few times when we play over in Japan or for a few beers or for a dinner, I think, being able to get away from New Zealand and being able to get away from the pressures of not only the All Blacks, but the Crusaders, Canterbury, and being in Christchurch, and I guess with all what it involves playing in New Zealand rugby. So went over to Japan, has won a couple of titles over there, has had some different, experience of being able to try and lead a team from not being so successful like your Crusaders or your All Blacks, have been able to bring a team to win a championship. So the growth that he's had in terms of being able to drive a program, being able to, be more of a coaching role, being able to bring people with him. He was already doing that at the Crusaders and in New Zealand, but at a different level and getting that kind of fulfillment, I think is great. But I think knowing him and the competitor that he is, he's probably still got unfinished business. And I think that 18-month contract that he has signed, he's coming back for that World Cup and wanting to finish on a high note before maybe heading back to Japan again.
Todd Blackadder on the program 6-7 weeks ago said to us that he thought that Richie was playing better than he was when he left the All Blacks. And so, it's difficult to equate the opposition he's playing, but just to hear that he said, look, he's an intelligent guy, he's a driven guy, he's not just going to sit on his laurels and go, okay, I'm just here to do this. He wants to improve all the time. I was so rapt to hear that before he even comes back to play. I just saw that's actually just a guy who's a real pro.
Yeah, mate, he's got an unbelievable mindset. It doesn't matter where he is in the country. He had ambitions to be able to change that program at Toshiba, and Todd Blackadder obviously signed him, and look, he's won two championships at that club. And the biggest thing with Richie, he's a competitor and he wants to be on the world stage. I think, it's probably in a position where you're an All Black and, it's not until you don't have it anymore, you probably miss it. And look, obviously there's a financial need in that, being able to set up his family, which is obviously a big part of why players do go to Japan. But yeah, I think the only thing that he hasn't won is a World Cup. So you'd have to think that would be a massive motivating factor for him to come back and try and at least win a World Cup. And again, obviously gets to don that red and black jersey in 2027 as well, which is pretty cool for him.
Yeah, for the rest of us who support the other teams. The other thing is just in terms of putting your player's hat on, how do you feel about this as a player who's competing for those positions at the moment? Do you look at it and go, yes, another one in the stable, that's great, that's just going to lift my game, I can learn off this guy as well? Or do you actually think, oh, bugger, this guy's coming back? How do you think the players will react to him?
Look, I think he's human. And if you're talking in particular here around the 10th position, it's a bit different, right? I think you have the ambition that you want to have the keys to the All Blacks, and you've always kind of had that, not the hangover, but there's always been chats around Richie coming back and whatnot. And so you are human and you're going to probably hear those chats. But look, I think competitors in themselves, it's like, cool, if he's going to come back, that's just kind of the position that you're in. You're not warranted a test jersey. You play with the currency that you are playing, and he's still got to go do another year in Japan. If you're talking more so in terms of Bodie and Marty, Damien, they've got the opportunity to have another campaign to be able to play for the All Blacks. So you're not warranted anything. Yes, Richie will maybe get an opportunity to come back, but he's still got to perform when he gets there. And, let's not forget, even though he is playing some really good football in Japan, I've seen it firsthand. He took a bloody final away from us at Kubota, but these boys are going to be playing, the rest of the June series, the Rugby Championship, the Northern Hemisphere to come. Yep. So they've got a bit of time to stake their claim before Richie does come back.
Well, we've just seen the Lions, fantastic series against Australia, and now attention obviously turns to that Rugby Championship. Let's look at the Australian team in South Africa to start with before we look at us against Argentina. But a cracking weekend of rugby coming up over the next couple of weekends where we get to see both these games and all four teams in action. Can the Wallabies maintain some momentum that they've got and go over there? And I don't know whether they can beat them, but certainly be a lot more competitive than perhaps we might have thought that they would be 3 months ago?
I definitely think so. If you look at that British Irish Lions series, we'll probably be honest, you probably thought as well in terms of probably a 3-0 series for the British Irish Lions. And
after the first test, for sure, mate. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you look at that first half of the second test match, they're up 23-5. Arguably a cool hero there with Tizano. They probably end up winning that test match. And then they won the third test match pretty convincingly. So I think they'll be buoyed by that test series. And look, they would have loved to be able to win that series at home. But look, I think if you're talking around dress rehearsals, going to South Africa to have an opportunity to play the world champions, they've had a pretty good lead up. Whereas I probably question if the South Africans have had that good lead up. They have played Georgia, they've played the Italians, but if you're talking around battle tested, you'd have to think the Australians would be better in that space. Now, let's not take anything away from the South African team. They're in a golden era of South African rugby. It doesn't matter, it seems, who they put on the field. They're able to get performance and been able to build depth. So, look, I think the Australians definitely do have a chance. Paul Skelton, and there's that new rule around the Gitterlaw. They've got rid of that, so they're going to be able to pick as many foreigner players that they want to be able to, I guess, try and win this Rugby Championship. So, no, look, mate, I'm excited because I think having the Argentinians who beat the British and Irish Lions in that first test match of their series, the Australians are very competitive in that British and Irish Lions. You've got us that are evolving from that French series, and you've got the South Africans who are world champions. So, mate, I'm really looking forward to this Rugby Championship. And, anybody on their day with what we've seen in this competition even last year, it's going to be a competitive Rugby Championship, I believe.
Yeah, look, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to, you always put your cap on and go, oh, what was it like last year? What was it like the year before? I don't know when I can last remember that all four teams go in and there's a narrative about every team. And, it's great that you bring up what you just did about, because Argentina beat all three teams last year. Let's not forget that. I mean, they did something that we couldn't do as well. So 2 tests over there against them with their French club players back as well is a bloody hard ask, isn't it? Without Cam Roigard, it's going to be even tougher. We still haven't really kind of sorted that 9 and 10 at the moment, but it's 2 tests for the All Blacks. I was saying it a couple of weeks ago, Bryn, that long-winded question, but I think that the way that we've done it against a French team, where we've been able to be off our game at times and still get away and not lose those games, then Argentina's another step up, especially over there. I don't know whether we could actually get more perfect preparation ourselves facing the South Africans than at home. It just seems to be a nice upward curve to me.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's the way that we are playing. I think we've got a lot better, I guess, from the first start of the English series last year. I think we were, trying to have this attacking ability, being able to try and hold the ball, but, execution role was a big thing with what happened with us last year. There was a lot of unforced errors, and probably that just comes to the cohesion of being able to have the coaching group, understanding the players and, different environments of the Hurricanes, Blues, Chiefs, Highlanders all coming together and trying to understand what a Crusaders environment is probably led by with Razor and that coaching group. But yeah, I'm really excited. I enjoyed what I saw around the attack. I think our forward pack was really, really good in that series. And look, I know it's a B French side, but if you're talking around the physicality of what we're going to need against the South Africans, the Argentinians, and being able to score points and through our forward pack, it's a pretty good, I guess, start to our June series. But we're going to have to step it up a lot, knowing with what's coming. Argentinians in Argentina, look, we lost in Wellington last year, so there's still that ability that they consistently can win on their day. They've beat the British and Irish Lions, but then they can obviously lose to England A. So you never know what kind of consistency you're going to get with the Argentinians, but look, it's a different beast over there, and I know that Razor and that coaching group and the players will know that 2-test match series is going to be very tough, and they're going to have to be on the job when they get over their first test match.
Might sound like a dumb question. How important is it to you, the style we play, the way we play, the intent we play, or just getting out there and winning these games?
Look, I think we want to be able to play a good brand of footy. I think New Zealanders and in general, and there's been a lot of talk in the media of being able to want to play this attacking brand of footy and not being able to be conforming to maybe the Northern Hemisphere style of kicking and being able to play without the ball. But I think being able to adjust on the run is really important. And, Scott Henson talked about on our podcast around being able to adjust and adapt on the run. Because, look, you're stupid if you're going to be able to try and play this attacking brand of footy, but it's pissing down with rain. Yeah. You know what I mean? So when it's like that, you've got to be able to adjust on the run. And, look, people might think, this is boring, but you want to win test matches. So
nothing boring about winning. Never.
Exactly,
never been bored with winning.
Absolutely not. But, some people want to have this attacking brand of footy, but we all love it. It's in our DNA as Kiwis, but I want them to win a test match with what's happening. So I think I saw enough of that in the second test match, and the third test match have been able to adjust on the run through its contestable games. Now Cam Roigard is out, and it's probably an area that he's probably the best kicking 9 that's been selected when him playing. Look, Cortez Atemi, he's going to have a really good opportunity with how long Cam's going to be out to be able to, I guess, have some attributes that he's going to need in the kicking game. You've got Kyle Preston, who I think is probably the best kicking 9 in the country off both feet. Now, whether he gets an opportunity, I'm not too sure. But I think with his selection, you're probably knowing what's going to come in terms of what they're looking for from their 9s. And that kicking game is going to be very, very big in these Rugby Championship games.
And you look, before we get it finally into the NPC, I thank you so much for your time, but also you can just see with the selections, can't you, that if the game is getting bigger and faster, it's obviously getting bigger and stronger and faster, isn't it?
It is. And look, you look at our forward pack, and I think that the way of what the day and age of what a forward pack is now, you've got to be able to have forwards that are able to play at the line. You've got to be able to have good footwork. You've got to be able to have a triple threat in terms of being able to carry, clean, and passing the ball as well. So I think if you look at our selections, I look at our props. You look at Tamaiti Williams, Tossi, even Ollie Norris, how good they are with the ball in hand and just ball carrying as well. But then I've really enjoyed our loose forward trio and even look at the locking stops with Fabian Holland coming in and his performances. I just think our forward pack's in a really good spot. And look, I know we've played not the British Irish Lions, we've played this French team who probably isn't going to be to the class of a South African, probably even the Argentinians, but I think our forward pack has been a really good improvement in those first 3 test matches. Hopefully it can continue with what's coming in the Rugby Championship.
Second round of NPC, and I was asked at the start, who I thought were dangerous teams, and I did mention your old mob, mate, because Wellington, we took another toweling in that, but, that was a really impressive Canterbury performance, I thought, and I've written a couple down here. I thought the Waikato comeback was brilliant. Seeing the old boys play was just brilliant, wasn't it? Bay of Plenty were really impressive against Tasman, I thought, and poor old Counties really copped one from Hawke's Bay. What were your highlights from that first run?
No, look, I think you've kind of touched on it all. I think, look, there's nothing better than an old man being able to score a try for Waikato against the Auckland team.
So cool.
That's coming from a harbour man. So anytime you get to see Auckland have a bit of pain, it's great. Yep. But look, no, that was great for Waikato. I think Bay of Plenty was very surprised with that result. I think you look at that Tasman team on paper, and even before the competition, you think they'd be there or thereabouts. And I think they will be. When it comes to push and shove through the time of the duration of this NPC, they'll be there or thereabouts. With Bay of Plenty, I think the players that they've had for a long period of time, they lose a final to Wellington last year. I think the continuity that they have within that group, I think they'll continue to keep getting better. And then you talked around Hawke's Bay and that game against County is a very good win. But look, I also think like Manawatu, even though it was against North Harbour, unfortunately, they're a little smoky. That I think if they can continue to get to a bit of a hot run, stay injury free, that might be their only problem. They probably don't have the depth of these other teams, but they are a little smoky for me. If they can play how they did against North Harbour, they could be pushing for that top 8 spot. Who knows?
How are you enjoying the media side of it?
Oh, I'm enjoying it. I'm trying to be a fisherman. No, not a fisherman. We're just trying to be a sponge and trying to learn everything. I think it's a great thing that we do with Aotearoa Rugby Pod. And thanks
yeah, man. Well, you've got a good teacher in Ross. Ross has been around the traps. I met Ross when he was a young boy, and he's been around 20-something years, mate. So he's an old stager now. Lots of experience.
Yeah, he's been awesome. And like Jipper and I, we played a lot of rugby together, and now we're in our 6th year, and we, 40 shows, close to 40 shows a year. So, no, mate, just try to chip away and try and articulate in different ways, and watching podcasts like yourself on YouTube, mate, when you got Marshy on and even TJ, and now able to try and pick their brains. It's not something I've been really enjoying and hopefully continue in the future.
DSPN.